Welcome back. Well, I mean, you're only going to be flipping over one table because there's two here.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, how are you, buddy?
It would literally be the, I'm good, but it would literally be the, super fucking joke's on you.
Yeah, anticlimactic.
All right, yes. Rem, welcome back.
Thank you, man. Nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. This was Dealer's Choice again, and by Dealer's Choice, I mean it was Remy's choice. Remy decided to pick the episode today. So, Remy, what did you decide?
So, me and Bob came up in a time of sex comedies. These were hard R-rated films that came out in the 80s and 90s that were 100% focused around fucking. And, like, generally it was nerd guy, group of guys try to get laid.
I was going to say, the main plot motif of all of these was, how can I, an underage geeky guy, get laid?
Get pussy.
How
Get
can I
high-quality pussy.
How can I pop my cherry with the coolest, cutest girl in school?
Yeah. So we're in a time right now, and this was the thing that gave me the idea for it. We're in a time right now where comedians are like, what can I say?
They're fucking shook.
Yeah.
They're shook.
Because there's a huge outrage culture and cancel culture and angry culture now.
Karen, Chad.
And even just, unfortunately, it's not just that anymore. It was them. And now
I think they're evolving.
It's people on the internet have been given too much room to explain how they feel, and everybody thinks their point's as valid as everyone else's. So we haven't seen a sex comedy in some time, but there are certain things that are in sex comedies. Bob, what's one thing that's going to be in every sex comedy?
A whole fuckload of slapstick.
Yeah. There's going to be...
And quick jokes, quick hitters.
There's going to be nudity.
There's going to be nudity. There's going to be... Every joke is either just in-your-face sex or everything has a sexual innuendo.
Like, to the point where it's like you watch these films and it feels like a 16-year-old who just discovered titties wrote them.
Or it's like a 16-year-old male, whether you identify or not, who just found out that something brushed up against the head of his dick and that he liked it.
It burst something into his mind.
How can I expand upon this? Ooh, my hands are wonderful. Now, how can I use someone else's hands?
And
whether they want to or not, which we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is I said, you know what, Bob? We came up in a time, and I mentioned 2 or 3 that we're going to talk about a little more in depth. I said we came up in a time when a lot of the humor is often characters doing things that are fully illegal.
Yeah, exactly. And the 3 that I want everyone to know, the list that we could have come up with is endless. And just so you know, Rem, I did quickly look up 80s sex comedies.
So did I.
And like Wikipedia by itself, it breaks it down by alphabetizes it, which I thought was cool for Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were literally like 180 from the 80s.
Yep.
Yeah, but we don't need to go through 100. We don't even need to go through 10.
We're going to talk about some iconic ones.
Yeah, because guess what? The basic plot lines apply.
Yeah. No, it's universal. And we will talk about some that happened more in our age and a little bit closer now than back then. But it's funny because if you rewatch these things, the first thing you walk away with is, oh shit. That's the first walk away because there's
hindsight bias.
It's bad. Like there's sexual assault that's veiled as for comedy or for entertainment. Yeah. There's rape, there's drugging, there is
illegal voyeurism.
Oh yeah, anything that's a crime now to do to someone else in terms of sex.
There's rape, there's statutory rape.
So there was a time when that was sort of the basis for humor, but it shifted so much. So it's interesting, I think, to look back and talk about our relationship with R-rated comedies and what we think they would they have a place right now if they were done a little bit better? I don't know. There's a lot here for us to unpack.
The Zennial Odyssey podcast, where hosts Remy and Bobby Rocks explore life for people born in the late 70s and early 1980s. Each week, they embark on expeditions exploring their analog childhoods or interview guests about navigating adulthood in a digital world. Join them on another adventure to discover what it means to be a Zennial.
So, if you don't mind, I'll start out with my relationship.
I was going to say, the floor is yours.
Please.
Take it away.
Thank you, sir. So, I'm young, and I mean young. This is the 80s. I'm 6 or 7. My parents were like fucking big shots, and they got cable. And we're old. We watched cable get installed in our homes. Like, we're old.
People don't realize that, especially in the 1980s, if you had premium channel, that was That was a sign of like wealth.
Yep, it was bank. Yeah, and so my parents, before my parents got divorced, we were doing really well. And so we had all that shit. And I remember we got the cable package, which was like MTV, VH1, Nickelodeon, and HBO.
And just so everyone knows, this is before like Cinemax was as widespread as it was
For the porn,
or Showtime.
It was the first cable channel.
I love how liberally you said porn with Skinemax.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
was. That's what it became for
A whole
me.
lot of titties and ass.
Yeah, a lot of softcore, no penetration, but you can almost not tell. But anyway, so
Merkins galore.
yeah, a lot of merkins,
Lot of merkins.
pubic wigs. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So I'm young, parents get that. And me and my brother and sister kind of figure out that this HBO shit, if it's later at night, can be a little
Risque.
risque. And we would constantly be told not to watch it and shit like that.
So naturally,
That's
we're
what
going to watch it.
Yeah, we're gonna figure out how to do it.
Don't do this. Okay.
Yeah,
Waiting for you to go to bed at 9, doing it.
that's it. So you sneak up around 10:15, and I remember I put it on. I snuck up one night, and it was a movie called Revenge of the Nerds. This is a big one. It's fucked because, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I start watching this movie. This movie is about a group of nerds at a college who can't get accepted to fraternities because they're virgin losers. Hooray. That's the thing. 80s nerds were like, hooray, with pocket protect. It was really fucking obvious and kind of corny, but so they form their own little frat. It's like the Kappa Gappa slap on my.
Oh, no. It was Lambda, Lambda, Lambda.
There it is. Thank you for that, actually.
Historically, in the universe of Revenge of the Nerds, historically an all-black fraternity
Yeah.
across the entire country, who the head chair people they came to visit them, and they said, you know what? They do have one black person in
They do.
We'll let it go.
Yeah. But
Even if that one black person is
gay as fuck.
is homosexual. Yeah.
Looking back, see what I'm saying? This is going to get problematic. Don't cancel us for the episode. We're telling you a story.
Mm-hmm.
So we're watching this, and the nerds are like, "No, let's get titties and shit." And so
Let's use our combined brain powers to figure out how we can get titties.
yeah, 100%. And there's a female
Naturally, a
sorority.
tale as old as time.
Song as old as rhyme. Nerds in the pussy.
And I'm sorry for cutting you off.
No, that was good. So there's a sorority of all like the hot 80s blondes. That's the thing. If you're in an 80s movie and people think you're hot, you have high, tall hair and you're showing your tits.
I was going to say everybody had the Farrah Fawcett haircut because it was still a thing then.
Yeah.
And they either were trying to look like Farrah Fawcett or a young Heather Locklear.
Yeah, either way,
Yeah,
that was it.
That was the look.
That was it. Susan Summers, all those blondes at that time. The nerds really want to kind of like get with these hot sorority girls, but they're with the jocks and the jock fraternity. The jock fraternity is always like beating the fuck out of the nerds and calling them losers. You've seen it before, flipping their fucking meals in the cafeteria, bullshit like that. So what's the first thing they figure out? The first thing the nerds are like, wait, let's do it. Was it a panty raid? Was that the first thing?
Yes.
Okay. Was the panty raid before the cameras? Oh no, the panty raid's when they set the cameras up.
Yes.
See, this is
That was the ruse.
this is fucked up. So there were these things people would do in the 70s and 80s called panty raids. Wow, this is going to be a great episode, bro. And what guys would do is they'd get like 20 guys deep. This is real. And so I'd call Bob and we'd call a bunch of our friends and be like, yo, let's run into the sorority. Without warning, let's fucking break into the sorority.
Be like, Bobby, let's pull a little B&E.
Let's go into their rooms and they could be home. Like you could look at them in the shower and shit, whatever. And let's steal their panties. Like this happened so often in the 70s and 80s. There was a name for it. It was a panty raid. So the first thing the nerds do is a panty raid. And when they do that, and this, like you said, this is cover up. When they do that, half the girls are topless. So they're like running through. And of course, it's a form of sexual assault. So like the women are screaming and shit and being terrified. But like the guys are laughing and the audience is supposed to think, okay, this is cool. What they're doing right now is cool. They're making titty progress.
You got a bunch of young, impressionable men who are like, so that's what college is like.
Yes, 100%. I'm a little kid watching this. And this is my first time seeing tits. And I'm like, I know I love those. I don't know why. My body is like salute to those.
Those don't look like me, but I like them.
So little do we know that the panty raid was actually, this is so fucked up. This is so fun right now, bro.
Yep.
The panty raid was actually to hide cameras in the woman's dorm. Okay. So they go back and whatever. It's like, oh, we got panties, but who gives a fuck? Let's check the footage. Bro. And then it's like a 5-minute scene of like girls in the shower washing their titties, girls fucking just titties. But then you hear the line that I'm going to repeat. Now that I'm going to say it out loud, it's crazy. The Asian guy says, "We got hair pie." Now, I'm laughing because this is insane to hear. It's lived in there the whole time. And I didn't know what the fuck a hair pie was.
At like 8, 9 years old, why the fuck would you?
No reference. Now, if you guys don't understand, the way naked women look now is not how they looked in the 80s. They used to do this thing called having natural tits and having pubic hair. Okay? Pubic hair essentially looks like, if you've never seen it on a modern woman, which maybe you fucking haven't, pubic hair looks like a fur piece of pizza that goes right, and it covers everything. There's no labia to be seen. It's just a furry, it's a beaver. That's why they used to call them beavers, guys. And then you see the shot. They're showing bush in this movie. Now, looking back, it's probably a merkin. A merkin is a pubic wig. That was one of the first articles I ever wrote that blew up. I was like, let's talk about merkins. But so a woman would wear it almost like to cover her vag, but it looked like a vag because it was a bush.
Yeah.
But they show like 3 bushes in that movie. And I remember being like, not even knowing how to react to that because like I had no basis. And it's not like a bush per se is sexy. It's not. It looks like a bush of pubic hair. But still, it was the fact that these dudes were filming these women's pussies without their permission. But this is the 80s, and I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, this is college? Holy shit, guy.
You haven't even gotten to what is my favorite part of Revenge of the Nerds. Dexter.
The little kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had one of those super genius kids, everybody.
Actually, take this.
Yeah, so they had a super genius kid. His nickname is Poindexter, but they call him Dex.
Little redhead.
Yeah, they call him Dex or Dexter for short. And he's super genius. And there's a scene where the gay character,
the black gay guy,
who's like, he's not into it obviously because he's gay. It's all women. It's kind of, so he gets up in the morning and he's almost like that from The Odd Couple. He's like the straight guy.
Yeah.
Like the straight comedian guy who's like, did you guys even go to sleep? And then he goes to Dexter almost like a kind of like a caregiver. Have you been watching this the whole time? And he's like 10 years old. And with a big smile, he's like, yep.
Glazed over
watching that. Mate, like that's the other. So now we have like adding in like kids to the mix.
Kid shit is not cool.
Yeah.
So they're looking at the pussy, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Movie goes on. So already there's been really invasive, almost sexual assault type stuff happening.
Almost to this point.
We'll get there. But it's interesting because you're rooting for these nerds. And as a young kid who kind of was probably a little nerdy, I was like, well, look at that. Look what can happen if you use your nerd powers for filth. So the movie continues. We're going to get to the part we have to get to. There's, jocks beat up nerds get sad, blah, blah, blah.
We should bring up the pies.
The pie scene.
Yeah. Right before what you were just referencing.
No. Talk about that.
All right. So apparently back in the 70s and 80s, a big thing was to raise money for a lot of stuff. So all the fraternities would do all these stuff. They would have these fairs, like alumni weekend at the college that I attended is this weekend. That's something they would do. And so they're selling pies. Everyone's selling pies, but everyone's going to the nerds' pies. So they send the most, like, literally, like, knuckles dragging on the floor Neanderthal jock over to buy a pie. And his name was Ogre. They all called him Ogre.
I always think about him.
Yeah. And so he gets the pie, and they're like, what is it about the pie? And he's like shoveling it in his mouth, and he's and then he gets to the bottom, and there's naked pictures of the women that they took from the recordings. And that's why everyone is buying the pies. And he goes, here's why, and shows them. It's literally like whipped cream covering a picture of like titties.
Like, think about that, though. They're selling naked pictures of girls who have not consented to have their naked pictures sold. This is the opposite of OnlyFans, yo.
And then at the same fair
with his moonwalks. And by the way, there used to be these things called kissing booths. This is another thing that is dead to the world, but they'd post up like 2 or 3 cute girls at a kissing booth for like $2, and they'd give you little kisses on the mouth. How fucking weird is that?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, main nerd, David Carradine.
Louis Skolnick.
David Carradine, right?
No.
He was Keith Carradine was his brother. Keith Carradine.
Yep.
So anyway, he sees that the main jock guy has a Darth Vader costume on, okay? So, main nerd is in love with main guy's girlfriend, okay? And she's in the moonwalk. That's what they used to call bounce houses when people had imaginations. They called them moonwalks. He goes in there dressed as Darth Vader. And she's like, oh, you came in here to see me? Well, blah, blah, blah. And she starts fooling around with him, okay? In the dark moonwalk. And he fucks her. And then she figures out that it wasn't her boyfriend. And catches feelings.
Yeah, she goes with it. Oh, you're not who I thought you were. Okay.
Yeah, right in the middle. Right in the middle. And she's like, damn, you're giving good nerd dick, though. And so she falls in love with him from rape. Yes, no, you heard that correctly. I'm sorry to say it.
No sugarcoating there. That's what it was.
No, she got dick down so good that the rape, she was like, this is my new shit. And then the movie ends with a big musical number. They do this lambda, 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 lamb, and they do like, and the gay guy's a guitarist.
Clap your hands, everybody.
It is
everybody, but come on.
It's one of the best musical numbers.
The electric violin.
No, the whole thing. Don't watch the movie, but please look up the ending because that and the use of Queen's "We Are the Champions." That's the other thing. And the movie ends with they've raped multiple women, and the song is "We Are the Champions" by Queen. Like Queen said yes. You know what?
It's the way you said it, though. At the end, the nerds have raped multiple women and they've conquered this campus. They've won.
They're Vikings at this point. And they play We Are the Champions. And like all the girls kind of like realize the nerds are dreamy and they like all pair off. It's fucking crazy, guys.
It's almost like the victim of the rape passed around that nerds give good dick.
Yeah, and they all just like got fucking like witchcraft caused fucking, yeah. It's an unfathomable movie now. And this was me at like 7. And okay, so ask me, do I think Revenge of the Nerds fucked me up sexually?
Did it?
Yeah, I think it did a little bit. I think I may have been a little too focused on pussy for certain points in my life. And I'll take ownership, but I would not be surprised if a part of that comes from the fact that this movie basically is pussy is God and do anything you can to get it. Now, did I ever do anything? No, thankfully, I had really good parents who very young were like, don't fuck around with drunk girls. Don't like, I'm very lucky for that.
What you didn't know is that they actually watched Revenge of the Nerds when none of you guys were around. And they were like, we're going to have a talk.
No, for real though,
We're going
right?
to have a talk with the kids.
Or they figured out we did and they were like, oh shit. So, you know, it didn't, I think it made me a little more horny. I don't think it made me a pervert per se, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But then, you know, now please, Bob, you let me talk for 15 minutes. That was my experience with Revenge of the Nerds. And by the way, I secretly considered that my favorite movie till like 11 years old.
I think for what it is legacy-wise,
yeah,
it's the way that you just described it. It's kind of, it's fucked up.
It's fucked up.
It's fucked up that is a like coming of age. It's considered a coming of age movie
that you can still see though. Like no one's like,
it's
okay,
still on TV.
This has so much rape that we need to banish this movie at least. And no, you can still find it. You can rent it. I guarantee. I guarantee one of the platforms has it. But it's just. And so we've gone from one extreme, which is fucked. And Bob will mention some other examples. We talked a lot, so you can take an opportunity too. But it's crazy that was normalized to us in some way, you know? But also now, and this is part of the discussion too, the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction that now no one's making comedy movies or making raunchy jokes because of how cancelable it is. Do I think that's the right solution? No. I think there needs to be a medium, and that's kind of what I think this is about for us, because we saw both.
80s sex comedies is one extreme. Where we're living now is another extreme. And I've said it a lot related to the show. Living in extremes is a terrible place to live.
It's exhausting.
It is. On top of being exhausting, which it is, it's just a shitty, like, it's black or white. You're either nerds raping women in every which way possible, or you're just, essentially, it's like we're now. It's essentially like we're back in the 1600s and we're Puritans.
Yeah, no, that is what it's becoming. Yep.
It's essentially the epitome of conservatism about sexuality, and there needs to be something in the middle. Like, we can't condone rape. We can't condone violating people's rights.
No.
But we should be able to have movies and comedians knowing it's okay to talk about the stuff that we all think about.
Like, why don't you, an older example and one that we have that you can probably talk about a little bit, Superbad, which is not as cancelable, but still jokes around with some heavy stuff.
Yeah, because Remy and I were talking about that was essentially like the last time there was a sex comedy movie on such a large scale that came out. And you want the plot? High school students going away to college or whatever. Last summer, they just want to fuck the hot girls. And they figured out the hot girls are having a party, and they said they would get beer for them. Therefore, they know they're going to be able to fuck bitches.
Drunk bitches, too, which is
That's
still a
about
little, but you know what? That's not...
But where they saved it is when the opportunity came with the drunk bitches, they had that moment of morality where they said, nah, this ain't right.
Yep, and I think that's how you save it. One of the last problematic ones, actually, I want to toss this one over to you. Definitely for our generation was, I think, American Pie.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about American Pie, what's right about it and what's wrong about it.
Oh, you guys are going to get real bored with these themes. High school seniors who haven't had sex yet want to fucking pop their cherries. It's like...
It's never different.
Did you know Graham Norton wanted to make a homosexual version of that?
Oh,
like a group of homosexual like senior males
that want to get their butts.
Who wanted to pop their cherry. And whether he was just saying that for the Graham Norton effect or it was pretty funny.
No,
pretty funny.
Yeah.
So these young men, only one of them has a girlfriend who he's fooling around with, but he hasn't gone
still
to
basic level.
Because his girlfriend, the train wreck of all train wrecks in hindsight, Tara Reid, she wants him to just say that like he has feelings for her like she has for him. I think that's a very novel thing.
Yeah, it was sweet.
That's very sweet, but he's struggling with that. All of his other friends are just struggling because they're inept.
Yeah.
Like they're so socially awkward.
Well, no, not the dude who fucked Stifler's mom. He's always my favorite character.
Oh, but he's like a Rat Pack guy. He's like a throwback.
Yeah, he had a singular vision.
He's a throwback, but I'm glad you brought that up because, again, American Pie had everything. It had the band girl essentially not raping him,
but being sexually aggressive.
But she used him and abused him, and that was a great twist because that's what stereotypically men do to women.
Yep.
That was a great but he was okay with it. Like he was like almost like a badge of courage. I was used.
But the only part of I think American Pie that's really problematic is with
the statutory rape by Stifler's mom.
No, I have no issues with that because he consented and he seduced her and he got what he wanted.
I know, but
I know.
We don't know exactly if he's legal or not.
No, that's true.
By whatever it took place in Michigan.
But it was that scene when he fingers that girl on camera.
He never fingers her on camera though. She's playing with herself.
Oh, and he busts
in his bedroom.
His nut.
And he has it on a webcam. And so all the guys at the school are watching her.
Yeah, you can't see that shit.
But that's still a problematic because it's a violation of her privacy, which they play it off as like ultimately she's just a sex fiend and is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Doing Shannon Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think, and this is another problem we run into in the late 90s, I think that stuff like that like derailed her career.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like she was we'll never know if she was.
No, but you never saw her in anything outside of that shit.
Because it was either that or 13 Ghosts.
Yeah,
I mean that was pretty much.
I love 13 Ghosts.
And the reason I say because she was fucking awesome in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah,
yeah. So we have the violation of people's privacy. We have a pretty good representation of boomer parents.
Yeah, Eugene Levy.
He wants to talk to his son about sex, but he does not know how to.
Yeah.
And like everything reeks of that. Like when he opens the drawer when he's getting his son like dirty magazines, because he doesn't want him to watch the bars of the Spice Channel through the bars. But instead, like he opens the drawer and he sees a bunch of condoms and he's like, oh, better than a tube sock, and walks out. Like, okay, or the pie, the pie, which is what the whole movie's about.
Yeah, fucking a pie.
Literally, because his friend told him that the inside of a woman's vagina feels like warm apple pie. So he saw that his mom baked a pie. He starts fingering the pie, and then he decides to start fucking the pie. As again, Eugene Levy comes in as he's literally fucking the pie. And then the next scene is they're both sitting there with what's left of the pie in front of them. And well, just tell your mom we ate the pie. That's what we'll do.
But yeah, we were weaned in a time when like there was just sexuality was over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that in a lot of those movies, it's almost satirical. Like it's so over the top that it's like, all right, this isn't a real representation of sex. Yeah. But,
And one thing I was thinking of because like you said that over sexualized you.
I think a little bit, yeah.
And for me, my issue with 80s movies isn't so much that it over sexualized me. It's just it gave me a perception of reality that was not true.
Yeah.
Like I would say that your stereotypical 80s movie is literally down and trodden fellows will win in the end. And you're right; it's not very problematic. I think it presented us with realistic things that could happen, like the girl who was having her menstrual cycle, and some of it got on the guy's pants, and he literally, because he has no experience with this,
Freaked out.
And that's pretty normal.
Shaming her, but
Yeah.
without realizing it.
Yeah, yes, the unintentional, and that doesn't make it right, or that doesn't make it less of anything, but yes, the unintentional shaming and stigmatizing of somebody because of a natural thing
Yeah.
that occurs. I want to go back to one that neither one of us talked about.
Okay.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah, but that dealt with
And that dealt with some heavy shit. It tried to make it serious, but it didn't. Like,
Yeah.
in hindsight, it doesn't. Like, essentially, Jennifer Jason Leigh gets an abortion.
yeah.
Underage, which, I mean, that's just, again, that's not realistic. Like, an underage person has to get consent from a parent, and they kind of dismiss that. They also treat it like it's not that big of a deal.
Which was interesting for the
Yeah.
80s because
Yeah.
it wasn't really talked about too
Mhm.
often.
I like how they presented the guy who basically bootlegs the tickets
Yeah.
as like he's this like, oh, this great guy, but when it actually gets down to it, and
He's a
she's down to,
scumbag.
but she's down to fuck, and he's never fucked anybody.
Yeah.
Like, that's true. But let's talk about the iconic scene.
The little young girl with the top coming off.
Yeah. Now, every actor in that scene was legal. They consented. Behind the scenes, she demanded that be a closed set,
Yeah.
which kudos to her. Kudos to
Phoebe
her.
Cates.
Yeah, Phoebe Cates said, "Fuck you. This is someone shooting it, and this is like a director, and this is someone like someone to support me.
Yeah.
That's fucking it."
But young girl shows her titties.
Yep. And then the guy's fantasizing about it. 'Cause
Spanking the wanking.
He's watching her outside the window, and she walks in. She walks in on him while he's finishing up.
Yanking the gherkin.
Yeah, and she's obviously like mortified, but there's a lot wrong with, I mean, just etiquette. Like, she just walked in, like, whatever. And the punchline there was, doesn't anybody fucking knock?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, he's beating off to you.
Yeah. And Fast Times at Ridgemont High was about more than a sex comedy, but
I wouldn't even put it as, I'd say sex is there, but it's more of just High School Musical, the real version.
We're gonna fuck.
Get an abortion. Get an abortion.
Yeah, because
cut it into portions.
I am glad that you picked the movies.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, it's like I didn't want to spend time in just this particular episode. Like, well, how are we going to define a sex comedy? Let's be fucking honest.
They're all the
Like,
same thing.
Yeah, they're all the exact same thing.
I remember what I want to ask you. This is important. I'm glad I got it back.
Okay.
So let's talk about the other huge problem with sex comedies now is the tranny joke.
Oh, yeah, it's gone.
And give your,
It's gone for a lot of reasons.
yeah.
It's gone because, again, it's taboo.
Well, what is the tranny joke?
The tranny joke is that
reference Bachelor Party.
Bachelor Party, by the way, for people who don't realize, Tom Hanks is one of the largest actors in the world. Up until, speaking of cross-dressers, the first show he was on.
Oh, Bosom Buddies.
Yeah, bosom buddies, dressing up in drag, dressing
get
up
an
as women
apartment.
to get the only apartments they could find were in female-only housing. And they were reasonably priced, so him and his male friend dressed up as women so that they
Yeah.
could live. And the whole joke was that the landlord would try to walk in because he thought something was up and he wanted to be like, ha!
But even that,
Get
yeah,
the
you
fuck
can't
out.
do that anymore.
I know, now that's discrimination, but I digress. Anyway, 1984 was a banner year for
Mr.
Tom Hanks
Yep.
because two movies came out that just springboarded his career. The first one, Splash. A mermaid played by Daryl Hannah. Beautiful. Oh, it was lovely, Daryl Hannah. And she's one of those people that her career in the limelight was not long, but when it was in the limelight, it was a good career.
Do you know why it wasn't long?
There's a lot of reasons.
She's autistic.
I did not know that. No.
Yeah. Yeah, she came out.
The way that she played the mermaid in Splash, though, makes sense.
You know what's
That's why she was
interesting,
good for that role.
though? Splash is super problematic.
It's also another movie that we've talked about on this show that has Eugene Levy in it.
That's not why it's
And I
problematic.
know that's not why it's problematic. He's a wonderful comedian. He's fairly safe.
Mermaid washes up on shore. Tom Hanks takes her home and puts her in the tub. She can't speak English. She has the basic intellect of a child. And she's hot. So for that reason, nobody necessarily has an issue with the fact that he's spicing up the mermaid. You know what I'm saying? But it's like,
to his credit, he doesn't take advantage of her. And we do have to give the backstory that he fell off a boat when they were children.
and she saved him.
And she saved him as a child mermaid, and he's been looking for her his whole life.
Yeah, it's cute.
Like that part of the story is wholesome and cute. And he doesn't take advantage of that person. He helps educate that person and and all that, and then decides to go live with them, which is like, okay, so at what point does he drown? And then that's why there was no sequel. But anyway, the other movie that he got huge on, which Remy referenced, is Bachelor Party, which is where literally Tom Hanks's character is marrying this well-to-do lady, and he's obviously from the rough side of the tracks, but it's about him and his friends getting a penthouse apartment and literally throwing like the raunchiest party of all parties. At one point, his friend runs into a tranny prostitute or stripper or whatever.
Without knowing, right?
Without knowing. But the joke there is that we all know as the viewer. Like there's really no, it's someone who, if you looked at them, it's maybe like 60-40. Could be a woman, but as soon as they talk, I mean, they're not, it's like, wow, you're so beautiful. What's your name?
Thank you.
My name's Tiffany. Not even hiding it. He ends up getting oral sex. He gets a blowjob from the tranny, and he tells Tom Hanks' character he's in love and all that. And Tom Hanks is kind of like,
oh shit,
okay. So then the character comes out and like, oh, like it's so nice to meet you, all that. Goes into the bathroom and standing up just takes a piss, and he's just mortified. And then the guy turns around and he goes like, by the way, my name's Tim. I'm a mechanic and I'm great with BMWs, and like walks out. And that's like the joke.
But that was common in
that was a common joke.
Like, oh no, a man blew me. Which, I mean, if a man ever blew me by mistake, I'd be upset. But having that as a punchline now would get you eviscerated.
But I think if it played out, even if it played out where it was more acceptable, everything else it played out the same way, it would be like a.
It's not even worth the joke, even.
Like it's not like okay, people. That's how that's like normalized now. Like, okay. There's and we can't forget the footlong. Do you remember the footlong?
No.
So his bride to be and her mother and some of her friends go to a Chippendale strip club, and they're trying to fuck with them, and so they find this guy who works there who literally supposedly has a 12-inch dick.
Yeah.
And so they basically put it into a sub roll, and he puts it on a silver platter, and he's bringing it out with drinks and everything, and you know the mom is the one who ordered the footlong hot dog, and then is that my footlong? And or I ordered the footlong, and he says, or is that the footlong? And his joke is, and then some. And then she's trying to take it off the plate, but then realizes it's attached to him because it's his appendage. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that went on. I mean, I think that there's a donkey who dies
from sex or something.
From something in the movie. Yeah. I mean, it goes really a lot. And then there's a jaded lover who's trying to sabotage the whole thing. And
you got to have some kind of antagonist.
Yeah. And
outside of herpes.
But yeah, that's one of the two movies that springboarded
Mr.
Hanks's career. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that went on in that movie that, again, it's not going to even come to anyone. Even if it got to the point where it's in front of the board, it's like, get the fuck out of here with that. No.
But I also think in the other extreme, like Revenge of the Nerds is a really brutal example, and it's fucking exploitative and weird and creepy. But I also think that there's a place for them if they're done kind of like Superbad and done respectfully, but still fucking hilarious. Because I think we're at a point now in society where we're standing on a precipice of the death of comedy as we know it.
Yes and no. This is, again, my opinion. Yes, comedy will change, but I also think that eventually the pendulum will swing back. Because I think I'm a strong believer in momentum of things.
Okay.
And eventually, like, the pendulum will swing so far in one direction that it will reach that point where everyone kind of collectively goes like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, this is fucking ridiculous. Speaking of where we're at, it's one reason why Dave Chappelle went through so much that he did. There was so much outrage and ire.
Because he was still touching on shit that made people uncomfortable.
Still touching on things that people are trying to say, you can't touch on that anymore. And Chappelle, as an old school comedian, is like, fuck you.
I'll poke the bear.
You're not going to tell me what the fuck I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that as it was treated differently with him, I think some of it's because he's a black male.
Yeah, of course.
So people don't want to kind of have that like, oh, we're canceling a black male. And he's aware of that. But also, like, people were giving him an out that other people who get canceled or try to get canceled don't get.
Yeah.
Well, if you just apologize. And I love how he's like, no, fuck you.
Not apologizing.
No, I'm going harder now.
Yeah.
I'm going harder now to prove a point to these people. And nobody talks about it anymore. That's what happened. Nobody talks about it, and he still creates comedy.
Yeah. Well, there need to be those brave pioneers.
And that's the thing, like, I think you're getting at is that we need to have somewhere where there's more brave pioneers.
Yeah.
Because we're losing the brave pioneers.
Yeah, it's true. And those people knowing where to draw the line between humor and fucking illegality, you know? I think there has to be a medium where we can laugh about sex shit, we can make sex jokes, we can make these comedies, but I don't think they need to be so fucked up.
And let me give you a different example of why we need people who push the boundaries. And this isn't sex related. Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor, who by all accounts is arguably the greatest comedian in the history of the 20th century, could not exist in today's day and age.
No,
And I bring him up because people talk about it and they do say it, but people try to protect him. When he set himself on fire, he was trying to kill himself.
That's what you think?
He was well, I think it was related to how the demons and his addictions.
Yeah.
Like that's where it was. And he was so fucked up and he was so savage as a comedian, he made fun of himself.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking months after he healed, he's back on stage. He physically no longer looked exactly the same.
Of course.
Because he legit set himself on fire. And he's sitting there like talking shit about himself. That is that's stuff that again could not exist today.
Yeah.
Like someone who went through all that would put themselves in a cave.
But yeah, no, and that's the thing. There will always be those people who say, fuck it. I'm going to risk it all, you know? But I think...
But there's less and less.
But looking... Oh, definitely. But I think overall, you know, the message from this is looking back, we're shocked how problematic some of that stuff was because we watched it without any of that, without being aware of any of that.
Well, we were young and impressionable, and that was what was being impressed on us.
And they were always Porky's, One Night Stand. There were tons of movies that did this.
And the reason we really haven't brought them up to the extent of Revenge of the Nerds is because they're all the fucking same.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Nerds, unfortunately, in there is kind of a decent movie in between all the fucking nastiness. But yeah, we came up on that shit. We're pretty normal. Bob's got a wife. I have a girl in a box in my basement. Like, I think we're pretty normal people.
Did you ever see Nerds in Paradise? Revenge of the Nerds 2?
Yeah, I thought it was so dumb.
That's actually, I saw that before I saw Revenge of the Nerds.
So different, right?
Yeah.
Nerds in Paradise has like, it's not nearly as problematic.
Yeah, but it also has one of my like all-time like childhood crushes in it.
Who?
Oh,
I know her.
Yeah.
She was on Melrose Place too.
She was on Melrose Place. She was the wife with Jim Belushi.
Yeah.
She was in that show that was early 2000s.
Courtney, I forget her name.
Courtney Thorne-Smith.
There it is.
Yeah. She was lovely. She was lovely. And
I
again,
thought she was average, but that's like normal. Like you
but,
get
you know,
different shit.
But that's my thing. Like I love the girl next door thing, which is
Yeah.
also a very 80s motif. I did want to talk about the only thing that I've seen recently that even comes close to this.
Oh yeah, you mentioned.
Was a show that recently ended on Netflix. It had 4 seasons, and that was a show that took place in Wales, which most people forget. Wales is a sovereign country in Great Britain.
Yes,
it's on the western coast, and it took place in this. And it had like very quaint villages, and it was about a bunch of high school students who were trying to sexually explore themselves. And one of them, his mother is a sex therapist. And so he figures he can give sexual advice for money to his high school peers. And all the hijinks that ensue. And that show is called Sex Education. Now, the difference between that, because this is where it ties into the 80s, their outfits and the music and a lot of the things, the themes of the show give you 80s vibes. You literally feel like you're watching a John Hughes movie.
Oh, nice.
When I say 80s vibes, that's what I mean. It feels like you're watching, like, at times Pretty in Pink. At other times, it makes you feel like you're watching 16 Candles. At other times, it's The Breakfast Club. And it's just kind of all of them to kind of like themes, all of them in and together. Where they updated it is that it's LGBTQ plus everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of the story arcs are great. But then, like, I was telling Rem, the first 3 seasons are great. The last season, like, they go to college where everybody is so woke and so everything that it's like, eh. But the thing that blows me away, and I was telling Rem this, is they show a lot of dicks in that show, which I thought was like interesting.
Rob likes dick.
They show more they show more dick than they do tits.
Yeah. Well, here's my argument. I had an article that I wrote that Jezebel actually ended up quoting the feminist site, and it was about how there's been an exponential increase of penises in fiction, whereas there has not been an exponential increase in labia.
And that's fair.
I don't think tits and dicks are equal.
Hmm.
I don't. I think tits are tits, man. Half the girls got free the nipple on Twitter. They don't even give a fuck. That's just their titties. A vagina for a dick. And you don't see, and of all the things for Jezebel to quote me on, you know, you figured they would have quoted it like, listen to this monster, but they quoted it like, oh, he's making a solid point, because a cock is a very aggressive thing. Yeah, it's just kind of in your face. So that always happens. I've seen a lot of cocks lately, but
if you think about it, Rem, that's pretty consistent with true feminism.
yeah,
Because true feminism is about equality for all. Not equality just for women, equality for all.
more vaginas in fiction, please. I want to see them.
And what they're saying, they're being consistent in saying, that's a good point. He's right. One thing that has come out of that, by the way, is in the early 2000s, the way that we were seeing male genitals was artistic. It was like, I think of Eastern Promises. You ever seen that movie, Viggo Mortensen?
The naked fight scene.
Yeah, the naked fight scene in the bathhouse. And because to me, what that is about
vulnerability.
You are about as vulnerable as you can be.
100%.
You are naked to the world. You have no weapons. They have weapons. And you are like that. And I'm just like, damn. Like, on top of the fact, if you've never seen Eastern Promises, it's a pretty violent movie.
Well, here's the thing too: is post that though, and now you see the penis used for humor.
Again, hence sex education.
And
Like I told Rem on the way here, the guy with the selfie who accidentally hooks his phone up to an airdrop thing when he's at the college.
yeah,
And it's a picture of his dick that he took, and all of his, and like his best friend is openly gay. And his best friend is sitting there in front of everyone being like, I want to support you, but why did you take a pic? Why is it soft? Why isn't it hard? Like, he's just judging him. And then they're judging how he cut his pubic hair and that too. Yeah. So I agree with you there that yes, it's there's so
punchline peckers.
Yeah.
But it's all right.
Sex education is the epitome of showing punchline peckers.
Yeah. On that note,
Take care.
funny ladies.